Hi, I'm Dad Tate, the journalism teacher, and this is my lonely little journalism room. And this is Journalism One. Well, okay, it's still 21st century journalism on their schedule, but old habits die hard, and I've always called it J1. So that's kind of sometimes you'll hear me talk about it in that way. And J1 is a precursor class to the publications. And I'm sure you've heard or seen the publications at this point. This is the Harbinger, the newspaper. It's a 32-page publication published every 2 weeks. And this was the one that they kind of kept on keeping on after the pandemic started. And you can see they published and they continue to publish throughout the year, and they've already worked on issue 1. And so the same with the website. And the website updates pretty regularly. And a yearbook, which is a 516-page yearbook that, again, they had to kind of retool a few things over spring break, and came back and finished the book. Had it out way before other Shawnee Mission schools did. But, you know, these have a history of high quality. They both have won, all three actually have won the highest honors from both major national organizations, National Scholastic Press Association and Columbia Scholastic Press Association. And so one of the few schools to do that. But it's a massive undertaking that these kids do. I mean, you can sort of see here the yearbook content from last year that they put out. It's 516 pages, and newspaper publishes that much. So when I think about J1, I'm really trying to get these kids ready to come onto a staff to take over the programs, because at that rate, at that point, they become more of a student-run publication. Journalism One is more of a classroom experience. And it starts here. It's not in that empty classroom this year. It's in it's right here in the Canvas homepage, which I'm sure you've already seen. But it's there. You can sort of find the basics on me. You got a little bio on me. And you've also got a little information about the class, how to reach me, which I'll give you more of that, the class WebEx information, and weekly plans. That, granted, I update pretty much weekly. And that kind of gives you an outline. Also, kind of while I'm here, just sort of understand the kids are still kind of adjusting to everything, but just know that they have to be there in the class during that period. I'm sure you've heard this from other people. They either have to interact, they have to turn their camera up to see them, or they have to like interact through chat, but they have to do something to sort of show me there. I think you can already see when somebody just has their camera clicked on, and just as an attempt to just sort of look like they were there. But it's in this canvas where you'll find all the basic information. These are the modules. Some of the posts are already there. You can see we kind of slugged through some media literacy to start, just to kind of give them some sense of philosophy and how important credibility is and how to establish it. And then now we're moved into interviewing, which is where we just interviewed an officer today, and we'll be moving more into that with the test project is a big original interview. And so it's here where you can sort of keep up as an observer in the class. And so kind of just a little bit about what to expect. I told the kids, I'm like, look, it's right here where you need to follow along. So someone walking in is like, well, what did I miss the other day? Well, you can almost count on following through in the modules, assignments, and discussions. If you follow along there, you shouldn't fall behind. And now granted, like I try to keep them all in the modules, but I've adjusted to sort of new software and everything. And so like 1 week I had everything in the assignments, but not always in the modules. But I told them, I'm like, I plan to get it all in the modules, but you should at least be checking all three, and that way you shouldn't miss anything. The class is really built on the whole idea of the daily work should be a lot of hundreds. I mean, if they're not late, if they're on top of it, it's really about giving them feedback. I tell them I'm going to read everything they turn in, and that should be a nice way to sort of give yourself a cushion of a nice daily average. Tests is where I push kids. Tests is where I get in and I can push kids to be better and to do better work, because tests are pretty much all original work. So as we get in there, that's where I will grade the rough draft, and it'll come back pretty rough. Okay, so don't panic if they come back with a really rough grade on the at that point, because they'll have a chance with with the final to actually erase that, because I actually replace the rough draft with the final. But there's plenty of feedback. There's always plenty of feedback there. If you ask anybody about me, that's one thing you'll hear almost assuredly sometimes, that I'm pretty rough about publications or my expectations, and that I give plenty of feedback. So sometimes kids, they got to understand that I'm just trying to make the work better. And that's something that I try to get across to them, that it's not a personal thing. It's just about making that particular story, that particular piece of product better. So there's always plenty of feedback. I encourage kids to come by and see me, usually during the year, but obviously they can bounce in FaceTime. I'm pretty quick about getting back to emails. And so I always give plenty of feedback with multiple rough drafts. In the class is starts with kind of interviewing, then we'll do a little news writing, and then it becomes a verbal and visual thing. So if kids may think they lean a little more visual, they just have to hang on a little bit, and then we'll do some design after we get to news, and then we'll back to feature writing, and so on and so forth for the semester. And the big thing I have found, though, is the kids have to be willing to talk to people that they don't know. And granted, some of that may be over a Zoom or whatever. I get it. There's going to be limitations this year for them, but it should be able to sort of talk to people, no texting interviews. And so that sometimes this is a bigger hurdle, probably in the last 5, 6, 7 years than probably it had been. And so I just encourage kids that they have to be able to talk to people that they don't know. And so all the original work will include talking to people that they potentially don't really know. So so they have to get used to that. I will tell you, though, that there will be some chances for optional test grades. You'll hear me talk about optional test grades. Well, usually they're based on this. This is a Texas thing, that they've done all the interviewing for you, and then you'll give a chance to write a rough draft of this for a daily grade, and then you'll have a chance to redo a draft of this for the final grade. And that final grade will be a test grade, but it'll be optional test grade. So if they don't do it, it won't hurt them. And then if I put it, and then I wait to put it in at the end of the quarter, and I only put it in if it helps their grade point. So again, it's a chance for me to push them to become a better writer, but necessarily we're not out to kill their grade point. In fact, in this case, it'll be a chance to sort of help their grade point. So there'll be a number of these type things every time we have a subject, other than interviewing, we get to news, feature writing, and then even design. You have an element of that's an optional test grade that goes with it. So there are those opportunities for kids. The one thing I want them to get across is kind of what level it takes, and how many drafts and how much rewriting and how much redesigning. And this is a perfect visual example of kind of like, look at all the rewriting, or the redesigning that they went through this year to get to one bowling spread. So when you look down at the bottom, you see all the different versions that particular designer went through as they tweaked and worked their way through the design, and end up with a really nice design. And so that's the kind of the process here, is that they have to understand that it's all about redoing and polishing and improving. It's not just one draft and they're done. I mean, you can see the same philosophy in our photography, where they went in and they really tried out lots of versions of their portraits. And this is Katie Drake, actually. She was my photo editor last year. And so she's just posing to sort of for them to go through the motions of trying to figure out what they want to look like. And then they kind of had their feel looking, and then they brought in their real person who happened to be a model. They were lucky there. And they got some really nice images out of it. And that's kind of where it ended up. And that's where it ended up on the publication. So you really get to see that it's that process that I try to get across to them in J1. It's the process of reworking, rewriting, redesigning, the brainstorm philosophy. That's the kind of thing that I keep coming back to in there. And it's all building towards putting them on a staff eventually. And there, quite frankly, it's paid off. And you can see here it's paid off for a number of kids at the state and national levels. And so I like to do this outside. This was upstairs, but these were my winners one year, where I'll put something up about every single kid once they win some state, local, national award. And amazing how many different faces we see up there, just because kids are really successful within the program. So you kind of get to see, and hopefully, try to show them that as the semester goes on, to build that sense that it's worth for something. There's a payoff, not just in the awards, but also in building you and making you a better thinker, writer, designer, and those things along the way. And that maybe they expect to do it in one and done, but it's not. It's going to take more than that. It's going to take some effort, and really, I mean, it all does pay off for kids. Here's my favorites of, like, you like examples of paying off, because over the last I think probably about 10 years or so, maybe a little bit more than that, maybe about 12 years, we've had these three former SME journalists who have all gone on to win Pulitzer Prize. Funny one is Morgan Krakow, who she was part of a team during her internship and won a Pulitzer during her internship. So how great is that? But those are good examples of where kids have gone on to do well. But it's not really just those kids. There's, these are skill sets that I try to get across that they can use no matter if they're working in engineering. I had an accountant one time and come back and talk to me about how much of she was able to use as in her field as she was in college and beyond. How much of the journalism program had given her skill sets that she could apply. So that's kind of a quick overview of the class. Here's my information. Again, I'm pretty much on that email on a regular basis. So it kind of stays up and it stays going, so you can reach me almost anytime. I'm pretty quick to respond. And if you need me directly in the room, there's the room number. You can leave me a message. But again, that email's always, it's on my phone. So even if I'm at home or wherever, usually I'll try to get back to you pretty quickly. So that's a very fast view of the journalism program, Journalism One program. If you do have any questions, feel free to email me. Yeah, and like I said, we'll push along. And if you have any questions, just let me know. Thanks for joining us.